You closed the app, and your whole body relaxed. Not because you solved anything, not because the number changed. You just stopped looking. And for a few hours or a few days, the weight that lives between your shoulder blades when money is uncertain lifted. The low hum of financial anxiety quieted. You were still in the same situation, but you were not watching it. And you noticed somewhere in that absence that the watching had not been helping. This is a story about two different kinds of not looking. The first kind is avoidance, putting the phone face down so you cannot see the notification. Not opening the banking app because opening it might show you something bad, and not knowing is better than knowing, at least for now. Letting the statements pile up, letting the decisions defer. Not looking because looking is its own small emergency and you have run out of capacity for emergencies. The second kind is different. It is deliberate disengagement, choosing consciously to stop monitoring, not because you cannot face the number, but because you have done the work and set the systems and you have decided that checking compulsively is not helping you and is costing you something. Not looking because you have looked enough. These two things look the same from the outside. They feel very different from the inside. And understanding the difference is, in some ways, the whole of what financial health is. Start with what compulsive checking actually does. For a lot of people, the bank account is not a financial tool. It is an emotional barometer. Every time you check it, you are not just retrieving information. You are asking a question. Am I okay? Am I safe? Is there enough? And then the number answers, and the answer either temporarily relieves the anxiety or temporarily confirms it. And either way, the relief or the confirmation lasts about as long as a cup of coffee, and then you check again. This is not irrational. In conditions of genuine financial instability, monitoring your account is genuinely important. You need to know if the overdraft is coming, if the payment will clear, if there is enough left for the end of the week. In those conditions, checking is accurate risk management. But the checking as anxiety relief pattern persists even when the conditions that made it necessary no longer exist. People who are no longer in precarity continue to monitor with the vigilance of someone who is. People who have enough, who have a buffer, who have covered the obligations, who are not at risk this month, still check 5 times a day. Not for information, for reassurance, for the temporary quieting of the part of the brain that is still convinced the emergency is coming. The reassurance does not work. The anxiety returns. The checking continues. There is a specific cognitive mechanism here that is worth naming. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. The brain, given a choice between a bad outcome and uncertainty about whether a bad outcome will occur, will often choose the bad outcome. Bad is bad, but at least it is known. Uncertainty is unresolvable, and the not knowing is its own torment. Financial anxiety lives primarily in this zone. Not the knowledge that things are bad, but the fear that they might be. Checking the account is an attempt to resolve the uncertainty, to find out, to move from the maybe to the known. The problem is that checking the account does not actually resolve the uncertainty about whether things will be bad. It resolves the uncertainty about the balance right now. But the underlying fear is not about the current balance. It is about what might happen, what might go wrong, what could go wrong that has not gone wrong yet. And no number on a screen answers that question. So the checking continues because the question it is trying to answer cannot be answered by the checking. The deliberate choice to stop monitoring, the second kind of not looking, is based on a different premise. The premise is, I have done the work. I have looked at the full picture. I know what is owed and when. I have set up the automatic payments. I have transferred what needs to be transferred. The account will do what it will do. Looking at it 30 more times this week will not change what it does. And the 30 looks are costing me something. This is not denial. It is the recognition that vigilance has diminishing returns. After a certain point of awareness, a genuine, eyes-open understanding of your actual situation. More watching does not produce more information. It produces more anxiety, which produces more watching, which produces more anxiety. The practice is to do the work up front. Look fully, set the systems, make the decisions, and then disengage. Not permanently, not blindly. Check at a scheduled time, review the picture, make any adjustments, and then close the app and go live. The peace that some people feel when they stop checking is not the peace of ignorance. It is the peace of having done what is actually within their control. This distinction matters because the temptation is to interpret the relief as a sign that avoidance is working. To think, I feel better not looking, therefore not looking is the answer. This leads to the first kind of not looking, the avoidance that compounds the problem while the anxiety quiets. The relief of deliberate disengagement is different. It is earned. Comes after looking fully, not instead of looking. The difference between a person who has handled their finances and closed the app and someone who is hiding from their finances and closed the app is not visible in the app being closed. It is visible in what they did before they closed it. There is also something to be said about the relationship between financial monitoring and financial identity. For people who have had a difficult relationship with money, who grew up with scarcity, who have been through a financial crisis, who carry the memory of a time when not watching was genuinely dangerous, the account is not just the account. It is a proxy for safety. Watching it is the closest they can come to controlling the outcome. The vigilance is the only thing that feels like it is doing something. Letting go of that vigilance, even when the vigilance is no longer necessary, feels like letting go of safety itself. Like the watching was protective, and stopping the watching is inviting the thing you were protecting against. This is the hardest piece to address with logic because it is not operating at the level of logic. The fear of not watching is older than the current situation. It is a pattern learned in a real context in which watching was necessary, and it has not updated to the new context in which it is not. The updating happens slowly, through experience, through closing the app and discovering that the thing you were protecting against did not happen. Through repeating that enough times that the nervous system begins to notice the pattern. Through accumulating evidence that the current moment is actually different from the moment the vigilance was learned in. The practical piece is simpler than the emotional piece. At the practical level, stopping compulsive checking requires replacing it with something designed. A financial review on a schedule. Once a week or once every 2 weeks. A specific time to look at the full picture. Not a glance to check the balance, but an actual review: what came in, what went out, what needs attention. Then close it. The review is the work. The rest of the time is for not doing the work. The work is already done. This is not a natural habit for most people, because most people have never been taught to have a financial review practice. They check when they are anxious and they look away when they are not. The structured review is a replacement for both. A practice that is intentional instead of reactive. The question of what you do with the bandwidth when you stop monitoring is not trivial. The compulsive checking fills something. It is a form of engagement with the anxiety, a way of being in relationship with the fear. When it stops, there is often a gap. A restlessness, a reaching for the phone, a sense that something should be being checked. What goes there eventually is the rest of your life. The things that were slightly inaccessible when the hum of financial anxiety was constant. Not because the money situation has changed, but because the relationship with the money situation has. You closed the app. Your body relaxed. If you have done the work, if you looked and set the systems and made the decisions, the relaxation is not a symptom of avoidance. It is the thing you earned. You do not need to watch it every hour to stay safe. Safety is not the watching. Safety is the situation, which you have looked at and addressed, and which does not require your continuous observation to remain addressed. The account will still be there when you check on schedule. The number will be what it is, and you will have spent the time between now and then actually living, rather than managing your anxiety about living. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing.